A warm welcome to TV Africa News and thank you for always joining us. This is Africa Today. My name is Najuma Luima, but first are the headlines. Former head of Treasury Keith Mohakanizi dies in foreign land. Kenyan MPs amend defense deal with UK over prosecuting British troops. Uganda to face Kenya again in Rugby Africa Under-20 Bets Trophy quarterfinal. Welcome once again. Now the news in detail. The permanent secretary to the office of the Prime Minister and former head of Treasury Keith Mohakanizi has died. Mohakanizi died in Italy, where he had been flown for further management following a stint with illness. We have more. According to close sources, Mohakanizi has been in and out of office since 2021 owing to sickness. Indeed, even when he was posted to the OPM from Treasury, the technocrat was away in Turkey receiving treatment. The government spokesperson Ofona Pondo confirmed Mohakanizi's passing, elogizing him as a friend to many. Mohakanizi showed to prominence for his long stewardship of the finance docket. He was a no-nonsense manager who often starred at his supervisors in Parliament when defending government budgets and expenditures they deemed to be too high. Mohakanizi often defended the budgets, quipping that the rationale was beyond some of the outraged legislators. He worked in tandem with Bank of Uganda Governor Tumusiime Mutebire to pivot the Ugandan economy from a socialist leaning towards a capitalist system, and together they are credited for restoring foreign investor confidence in the Ugandan economy with their policies and management styles that chimed with World Bank and IMF recommendations. This included steadily withdrawing the government from the business and encouraging private enterprise. Going forward, UK soldiers could be tried for murder amongst other grave offences committed against Kenyans in Kenya. This has come after Kenyan members of parliament on Wednesday voted to amend a defence agreement with the government of the United Kingdom of Great Britain and Northern Ireland.
Kenya MPs voted on Wednesday to amend a defense agreement with the government of the United Kingdom of Great Britain and Northern Ireland. The amended deal will now go to the Kenyan Ministry of Defense for further negotiation with their British counterparts. The murder of a 21-year-old woman by the names of Agnes Wanjiru, who went missing after she was seen walking out of a bar with the British soldiers in 2012, prompted the move. Her body was later found in Kenya in a septic tank at her hotel nearly 3 months later. To this day, no one has been brought to justice for her killing. The UK Defence Ministry has insisted it's been cooperating with the Kenyan authorities over the investigation after allegations of a cover-up. The defense agreement was initially proposed in 2021 under former President Kenyatta, but its parliamentary ratification was delayed due to presidential pause and local objections over the agreement.
Nature photographer Suha Debent, who has traveled to more than 80 countries from Scandinavia to Madagascar, Sri Lanka to Canada, met with art lovers at the exhibition titled Harmony. Let's take a look. The exhibition, reflecting the nature of African human portraits, was opened to visitors at the Maximum Unique Hall in Istanbul, Turkey. In a statement to journalists, the wildlife photographer, who has been traveling the world for 40 years, said he wanted to raise awareness about respect for nature, stressing that he considers all living beings in nature as equal. Mr. Debent continued that we must accept that we are not more important than the creatures of nature. Suha Debent pointed out that Africa is also paying the price of global climate change, adding that the rainy and dry seasons were clear, but now they are mixed up. Debent, who has more than 2 million photographs in his personal archive and is the author of the books Kenya's Wild Side and Face to Face, has published his travel articles and photographs in numerous local and foreign newspapers and magazines. The exhibition will open on May 19th. Downed electric pylons in Pretoria now being repaired are adding to the ongoing power woes for residents. Many areas in North and East Pretoria had lost their electricity supply.
At least 7 large electricity pylons collapsed onto a highway near the South African capital of Pretoria, causing a multiple vehicle crash, according to the city authorities and emergency services. South Africa has been battered by record blackouts over the past year, triggered by mounting problems at the Bellegarde power utility Eskom. 2 people were moderately injured in a car crash, treated at the scene and taken to the hospital, the private Promdi paramedic service said. Promdi said the pylon collapses had caused the high voltage cables to hang extremely low over the highway, causing vehicles to swerve to avoid them and resulting in the crash. The reason for their collapse was unclear, but Tshwane Mayor Sirius Brink said there is a very strong possibility this is because of criminal vandalism. There had previously been attempts to steal sections of metal from the base of the pylons, Brink said, and the pylons had to be repaired.
Welcome back. You're still watching TV Africa News, The Right to Know. Italy on Thursday vowed a host of investments in Tunisia and help negotiating an international monetary fund bailout as Rome seeks to stabilize the North African country's economic crisis and stem the increased number of migrants coming to the European nation. Foreign Minister Antonio Tajani outlined Italy's efforts and pledges during a meeting with his Tunisian counterpart Nabil Amal, who insisted that Tunisia has seen growing numbers of African migrants arriving from the Libyan border and needs economic help. The Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development said that Tunisia is experiencing its worst crisis in a generation, with inflation hovering around 11% and food increasingly scarce. The government is negotiating a $2 billion to $4 billion loan with the IMF to cope with the budget deficit aggravated by the COVID-19 pandemic and fallout from Russia's war in Ukraine. But in return for a deal, Tunisia would have to commit to painful reforms, including shrinking the public administration sector, one of the world's largest, which eats up about a third of the state budget. The IMF also is demanding the gradual lifting of subsidies and privatization of state-owned enterprises, which implies massive layoffs and a worsening of unemployment. Let's take a quick break. We will be right back. In our business news today, Egyptian President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi on Wednesday greeted his Emirate counterpart at the Cairo International Airport. Sheikh Mohammed bin Zayed Al Nahyan was accompanied by a delegation comprising of UAE's Vice President and several ministers.
The Emirati leader tweeted that he and the Egyptian president explored opportunities to further strengthen the deep-rooted ties between their countries. Last year, the two nations celebrated 50 years of bilateral relations, and the official visit comes at a time when Egypt struggles to overcome a staggering economic crisis. The United Arab Emirates and other Arab Gulf states have been the main suppliers of aid to the Egyptian government. Cairo's foreign reserves fell by about 20% in 1 year to $34.45 billion to about $28 billion, of which are deposits from wealthy Gulf donors. Al-Sisi has replied to the hangouts from Gulf Arab states to keep his country's economy afloat since seizing power in 2013. Estimates suggest over $100 billion in Gulf money has gone to Cairo via central bank deposits, fuel aid and other support since then.
In our health news today, French football player Kylian Mbappé fulfilled the dream of many children on Wednesday when he took part in a football match with children from unprivileged backgrounds at the Stade de France, north of Paris. The star has been a patron of the Premiers Decodé Association for 6 years and confessed his admiration for these kids. We may be admired for the things we do, and we deservedly so, but they are the real heroes. They are the ones who fight real battles every day. We don't have struggles like that, he said. Mbappé told the 6 children that it's not hard to play for Paris Saint-Germain or captain the French team, but rather much harder to fight against illness every day, not knowing what the future will hold. Cheered on by crowds, the 24-year-old and 4 teammates who were kids from different age groups won and lost some games. The younger brother of the PSG player also took part in the event. Premiers Decodé Association was the organizer of the event. In addition to Mbappé, French famous athletes including basketball player Émilie Gomis and handballer Thierry Omeyer met with over 3,000 children in attendance. Kylian Mbappé has championed different causes, taking part in charitable activities. Premiers Decodé has been committed to organizing sports activities for disabled and hospitalized children for 20 years. And finally, with our sports news today, Uganda is now in its 4th year since returning to international age grade rugby, the 2nd year in the top tier of rugby, Africa's under-20 boys stroke men's championship, the Bates Trophy. Ahumusa with more.
Uganda finished 6th in the 2022 edition to earn automatic qualification for 2023. Thus, they will face host Kenya, who have finished 3rd in the 2022 edition, in the quarter-final on April 22nd, 2023. This is a repeat of the 2022 quarter-final, when Uganda entered as the lowest-ranked team and Kenya as the defending champions. Kenya beat Uganda 55-10 in the heavily one-sided match played at Nyayo National Stadium in Nairobi. Current holders Zimbabwe, who beat Namibia in the 2022 final, began their title defense against Cote d'Ivoire. Cote d'Ivoire beat Senegal in the pre-qualifier tournament earlier this year.
That was the news. Thank you for always keeping it TV Africa. Please do stay tuned. More programming coming your way.